from the NewsChannel 5 Network and Out and About newspaper, this is Out and About Today. Sponsored by the Tennessee Performing Arts Center.
Hello and welcome to Out and About Today. I'm Brent Meredith. We have got an energetic show for you tonight. In the Entertainment Outlook, Chuck gets a spring theater preview with Nashville theater and arts writer Amy Stumpfel. But first, we've got so much buzzing to catch up on, and I'm leading us in a two-part buzz about with my good co-host Chuck Long and our special guest, Marissa Richmond, Dr. Marissa Richmond, professor and activist and longtime friend of the show. You're going to know who she is when you see her, right? So, welcome y'all. How are you doing?
Doing great. Good to have Marissa here as always.
Yes, good to be back.
I mean, we told Pam to get out of here so you can be here. Like, no, actually, she's out of town on vacation this time. So
I'm sure she's having fun.
I hope so, right? Because she's missing the fun here. So this is an interesting topic, and I wanted to get y'all's opinion on it because I think by now, by the time this airs, everybody will have heard about it. May have already, but the Trump administration's decriminalization, that's a hard word to say, decriminalization of homosexuality. And what's sort of the reasoning, the sincerity, the method behind that, or the reasoning behind that? And before I read some of my quotes here, let me just get your initial take. Did you hear about this? And when you first did, what was your initial reaction when you read it or saw it on the news, Chuck?
Pandering.
Okay.
Total pandering.
Okay.
Yeah.
I use the word window dressing.
Okay.
To try to cover up all the bad things that this administration is trying to do.
Well, and that's interesting because I kind of had the same reactions to both. It was just sort of like the ears perked up, like, huh, what's this really about? So I started digging around and looking at a few articles and whatnot. And it's, of course, being led by U.S. Ambassador to Germany, Richard Grenell, and he is the highest profile openly gay member of the administration. And just sort of digging into what they were doing and how they were doing it. And I read a couple articles that said this, oh, there he is right there, there's a photo of him, that it looked as though to some folks that this was sort of an attempt to shame Iran, to gather sympathy in the European countries where they might be more relaxed on LGBT laws and sort of shame them in a way that even they know that the shamer should also be shamed, if I can say it like that and make sense. Is that help me here, help me not be mad about this. I mean, what do you see as the end result of this, I guess is what I'm saying.
Well, first off, I do think he's sincere in his desire to address this problem around the world.
The ambassador?
Yes, the Ambassador Grenell. However, it was interesting when the president was asked about it.
Yep.
He seemed taken aback, caught by surprise. So clearly this had not been vetted, at least through the higher levels of the State Department, and definitely not through the White House. So I think he's doing this independent. One of the things that we've seen over the past 2 years are people like Tony Perkins, who has the hate group, the Family Research Council, brag about the fact that they have more access, better access. They can go in almost at any time into the Oval Office, say this is what we want, this is how we want to hurt those people, and they're getting what they want. Yeah. And so I don't see any reversal in those policies as a result of this action.
And that's what I was getting at. Like, actions, not words, right? Like, let's see what happens. And and it says here, it's narrowly focused on criminalization. That's literally it. So it's just not a crime to exist. Right. Is what they're promoting, it seems like.
Well, and again, you look at the administration and you look at the overall track record, and this to me, this is that little carrot that they just kind of put out there, they dangle, and I would love it if they would do more and more, obviously, for our community.
Well, and we've seen a couple of those carrots. Trump was the first Republican nominee to mention the LGBT community in his speech. And we were kind of like, huh, what's that about? So there's been these little drops along the way. But like Marissa was saying, what really substantive policy have we seen other than just reversals of everything? And then the worry of marriage equality, even here in our own state, which we'll get to in a minute. I don't want to jump ahead. Anywho, anything else about this before we move on to the next topic? No. All right, that's fair enough. We got a lot to cover. So anyway, so just last week, Chuck, you had some really great guests, and you did a segment on sort of religion in the LGBT community. Right. Did you want to mention really quick what that was about?
Well, we were talking about faith in the LGBT community, and it's so important to so many people in our community. But we've just seen recently, whether it was the Catholic Church or the United Methodist Church, just had their big general conference, and they basically voted for a plan that keeps in place what's in the Book of Discipline. Which is basically, saying it is not for gay marriage. It is not for gay clergy, and that's really hard. And yet, I will say, in this community alone, a lot of the local Methodist churches, throughout Nashville are very inclusive. They're very welcoming and affirming, and they make that known. They're part of you know, Igniting Ministries and some other organizations that just do really great work on behalf.
Well, and that was what was a little confusing to me, in so much as, you know, the two different agreements. One was the United Church, or one church, and then was traditional plan. But the one plan, it really was still going to leave it up to the individual churches.
Up to the conferences,
So it wasn't necessarily that it was going to be an edict that this is what you have to do. So but so to not even allow them, like you said, there's a lot of affirming churches here. I know Glendale United Methodist is one. I've got some friends that go there. Belmont Methodist, West End Methodist, Edge Hill Methodist.
Yes.
I remember Edge Hill Methodist was one of the first churches in Nashville to have a pride flag on its sign. I went there several years ago, one of the first affirming chapters. So I mean, it's just really, I can imagine how they must feel.
Right.
But I wanted to talk about that as a group to get your opinion.
One thing that I will say too, just on this, and I just seen this quote.
Yeah.
And this is one of the things that's harmful, especially with spirituality, is one of the churches, and I don't need to necessarily name the pastor, but I read an article that he was in the Tennessean. And you know, and he's for the traditional plan. So he wants it, where if you're a self-avowed practicing homosexual, you know, you cannot be clergy. Of course, you cannot get married in you cannot get married in the Methodist Church. But anyway, what he said was, they believe that all people are of sacred worth, and added that everyone, regardless of their sexual orientation, is welcome at his church. Okay, so to me, you can't welcome people that you're calling basically second-class Christians.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work that way.
And I know we got to go to break, but the distinction that I've heard is that as long as you're not practicing, you know, like as long as you're just in theory
self-avowed practicing homosexual.
Like if you're not committing any of the acts of homosexuality, then you're welcome, you're okay. It's when you start being yourself that there's a problem. Right. Anyway, I know we could talk about this all day, but we need to take a quick break. But when we return, we'll have more buzz about. You're watching Out and About Today.